For ions, you want to remember that they are charged atoms. So you're not really concerned about how many neutrons they have. The atoms that have different numbers of neutrons, atoms of the same element with different numbers of neutrons, those are isotopes. For ions, your focus here is really making sure you're focused on the protons versus electrons. So ions are defined as charged atoms, and the protons do not equal the electrons. So you're either going to have a situation where you are a cation or an anion. Cations have more protons than electrons, so they have a positive charge. Anions have more electrons than protons, so they have a negative charge. And remember your mnemonic for anion, A negative ion. So you always know there from the name, A negative ion. And so what we're going to do for this is that these are just simple ions. You don't have any sort of isotope notation. There's no mass number written out. There's no Z number. You just have the element and the charge. And so we're going to focus on identifying how many electrons does the ion have, because ions can only gain or lose electrons. You can't gain or lose protons because then you are a different atom. But you can gain or lose electrons and you now become an ion. There's a difference in the charges. There's not the same balanced ratio. It's different values. So aluminum is number 13 on the periodic table. So that means that aluminum always has 13 protons. Aluminum right here has a 3 plus charge. So that means that it has 3 protons. 3 protons. It's showing off that it has 3 more protons than just plain old normal aluminum. So how do you end up having 3 more protons? That means that you lost 3 electrons. So we're going to say 13 protons. We lost 3 electrons. That means that we are left with 10 electrons. So these guys have 10 electrons. If you are following with the multiple choice options, then you know that that would be answer B. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that out for you. You can also just use this to help you practice identifying number of electrons. So I'm going to now look at magnesium. Magnesium is number 3 over here. So this is Mg2+. Magnesium is number 12 on the periodic table. It always walks around with 12 protons. This ion is showing off a 2 plus charge. That means it's showing off that it has 2 more protons. The plus, you're reading it as protons, and the minus, you're reading it as electrons. Don't think of it as plus is addition and minus is subtraction. Think of it as plus is protons, minus is electrons. So magnesium will always have 12 protons, but this time it's showing off a 2 plus charge. That means it's showing off that it has 2 more protons. How did we get 2 more protons? Again, you lost electrons, so you had to lose 2 electrons. How many electrons do you have? You have 10 electrons. So please notice in the instructions it says you can use the same answer more than once. So again, this answer right here is B. If I were to look at number 8, chromium 3 plus. So chromium 3 plus, chromium is number 24 on the periodic table. It will always have 24 protons. So chromium always has 24 protons. We have a 3 plus charge. How did we end up getting 3 more protons? We lost 3 electrons. So I'm going to do 24 minus 3 electrons. That's going to leave me with 21 electrons. And that is answer option C. So if you notice, all of these here are cations. So I want to give you some that have an example with an anion. So I'm just going to take 2 of them that are already here and I'm going to manipulate it a bit. I'm going to go to 5 and 6, cobalt. So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to create a brand new problem. I'm going to say that I want this to be cobalt 2 minus. And I want this one to be cobalt 3 minus. So I've made my own here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cross that out so that you don't get confused. If I'm cobalt 2 minus or I'm cobalt 3 minus, no matter what, if I'm cobalt, I have 27 protons. No matter what, because that's my Z number. But if I'm cobalt 2 minus, I'm showing off that I have 2 more electrons. So if I have 2 more electrons, what I want to think of it now is that I have 27 protons when I was not an ion, so when I'm neutral. That would mean that I would automatically have 27 electrons. But I've gained 2 more electrons because I'm showing off the 2 minus charge. So let me add 2 more electrons to that. That now means that I have 29 electrons. So because I created these problems, you're not going to have a multiple choice option here for this one. Let me go through the next one, cobalt 3 minus. So cobalt always has 27 protons. That's Z number. When cobalt is not an ion, it's not charged. If it has 27 protons, it must have 27 electrons. So that means that if I'm cobalt 3 minus, I'm showing off 3 more electrons. So I no longer have 27 electrons. I now have to take into account that I've gained 3 more electrons. So 27 plus 3 is 30 electrons. And again, this may not fit with the multiple choice. It doesn't, because these are questions that I made up.